I found the same thing that I have to work with time in a different way, in a more expansive way. So there is, it's almost like more space when you investigate time more deeply. And it gives me more opportunities to support your weight and to find the micro landings I can support with. So I'm not just grabbing with a hand or a back, but I can really feel the shift of your weight across a small part of my surface, that I have time then to adjust the rest of my body safely around that. So I can negotiate not just a connected weight, but how I'm working with the space to keep safe. You know, you find some really fantastic new shape and arrangement in your body that you didn't think would be possible. It's all about making time. It's also about familiarity, though, isn't it? It's trust and understanding. Trust between each other, but also now the trust you've grown with your body, that you're not worried so much about falling.
So that was Alison Slaughter from USA, who works very closely with people with disabilities. Today is the second day of Sambhav 2020 and it's full of activities. We started with two yoga therapy workshops and we will also be having art and craft workshop during the day, and then we will also have performances by international artists who are people with special abilities, with different abilities. And now it's time for seminar. Alpana has been working very closely with people with special abilities, with different abilities. Now, we not only teach them performing arts and other creative things, but also take part in various forums and work for the upliftment of people with disabilities. The topic of our seminar today is best practices in empowerment of Divyangjan, that is the people with disabilities. India is a signatory to the UN Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which calls for empowerment of people with disability. Now, how far these are implemented and taken seriously in India in letter and spirit, that is a matter of concern. We will be throwing light on this also during our seminar. Chairing the seminar is Dr. N.K. Dhamija. Welcome, sir. He's a senior medical policy advisor in Federal Government of India. In his current position, he is working very closely with ministries. In the current pandemic, he plays a very critical role in health sector of India. He's a medical graduate with over 41 years of experience, having served in esteemed hospitals in Delhi, including AIIMS, and he served in various senior positions in Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. With basic interest in public health and performing arts, he's willingly, with his wife, supporting Alpana, and he intends to do so all the time. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Bridu, for the nice introduction. You have come to know all about Alpana by now, but I would really like to make three-line statement on Alpana, that Alpana is a society which is started by Alpana. That is the best part of it, because it is Association for Learning of Performing Arts and Normative Action. Guru Alpana Nayak, humans like her spread all over the world, and she in India started this non-profit organization known as Alpana. The mission being promotion of performing arts and facilitating holistic human development, spreading among today's youth the rich heritage of India. The platform is provided by Alpana since 2006 in the form of Sambhav, where many countries participate and we come to know about various cultural heritages, especially in the form of music, dance, art, play, tabla play, etc., from various countries. Since 2006, Sambhav has been being celebrated, and today we have Sambhav 2020 with over 14 countries and India coming up together with the performance. And we have this international seminar on Divyangjan. Now, this is the word many of people may not know. Divyangjan is in basically Divya means divine, Ang means organ, Ang is part of the body, and Jan is the person. So we earlier used to call them person with disability. Then it was differently coined as person with different abilities. Some called them as specially gifted, and now our Honorable Prime Minister called it Divyangjan, the persons, the children with divine blessings, with divine properties, divinity into them. Because if some ability is not being granted to them by Mother Nature, somehow they outperform in various other capacities. So today, I would begin with this seminar with all Russian Association of Blind from Russia, with whom Alpna has over 10 years of MOU understanding as well as actions. We have Marina Suharkova, who is going to give us about All Russian Association of Blind. This organization was founded in 1925, so almost 95 years now, and unites over 2.1 million, that is 240,000 visually impaired citizens of Russian Federation. It was established to lobby the interest of and to protect the rights of visually impaired people, provide social support, rehabilitation, and help them integrate into the society. They have about 75 regional branches and over 779 local organizations. The governing body they manage through is in Moscow. And Mr. Alexander has been the president of this called as was and is a chairperson. WAS has established over 156 factories in 67 territorial entities in Russian Federation. So instead of me giving all the details, I just wanted to brief that Marina has been helping a lot in this organization, and I would now request Marina Soharkova to give us a brief and presentation on All Russian Association of Blind. Ms. Marina, please.
Thank you very much, dear colleagues. I am glad that today I have the opportunity to speak at this seminar and tell you about experience of the Culture and Sports Rehabilitation Center of the All Russian Association of the Blind. The main areas of work of our organization, this is socio-cultural rehabilitation for visually impaired and blind, sports rehabilitation, and the young movement for blind, and official radio station of All Russian Association of the Blind, and educational center for blind. The Cultural and Sport Rehabilitation Complex of All Russian Association of the Blind is the main institution for the rehabilitation of the visually impaired by means of culture and sports. There are several areas of rehabilitation work today. Socio-cultural rehabilitation, conducting territorial, all Russian and international festivals, concerts, art expeditions for visually impaired and blind. Sport rehabilitation, mass and professional sports for visually impaired and blind. Most popular sports among for visually impaired, this is the tennis for the blind, showdown. Educational center for the blind, in the Culture and Sport Rehabilitation Complex, training of the visually impaired in 5 areas is conducted. Cultural rehabilitation, rehabilitation of physical culture in sport, computer arrangement, orientation for visually impaired, and other. We have a central museum for blind of All Russian Association of the Blind of our organization. This museum was opened in 1991. Before there was conduction expedition of the organization of another organization of All Russian Association of the Blind. Now museum has more than 700 items of expedition. In the halls of the museum, they are blind musicians meet with interesting people at the culture event of this museum. Internet radio station for the blind, and our organization, we have at official radio station of All Russian Association of the Blind. This is Radio VOS, internet radio station. This is social radio. This is an information and culture and educational audio information for the people in different region, and most important event of All Russian Association of the Blind, and radio items to finally cover all aspects of life and rehabilitation of blind and visually impaired. Young movement for the blind, the main goals of the of the is young movement of the All Russian Association of the Blind, which is rehabilitation young blind. The young movement conducts both educational and cultural activities. An important area of the movement's work is placement and young visually impaired people. Which is the most important area of work of our organization. I have a presentation of our organization, and I may send you slides, and you can see about activities of our organization of this year.
Thank you, Miss Marina.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. It was so wonderful to enlighten us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Dear friends and family members all over the world at the moment,
Thank you very much.
Alpana has given this platform so that various organizations, various artists all over the world could give us details. Under this Sambhav 2020 platform, you are seeing so many luminaries. We just heard Marina, and now we are going to have live from Australia. I was just wondering, of course, COVID has given us a lot of difficulties, but at the same time, the digital India and the digital world all over has taken over on the virtual platform today, and we are all connected. Sambhav has not stopped. Guru Alpana Nayak, luminaries like her, all over the world have created Sambhav that is possible for all Divyangjan to come on the platform. And now we have Dr. Diana Reid from Adelaide, Australia. This is an introduction to a multi-talented character, human, a performer, a choreographer, camera operator, video editor, educator, and whatnot. A founding member of Outlet Dance in Adelaide in the year 1987-89, and a member of Dance Works in the year 1995. She is Masters in Dance. In 2004-06, Artistic Director as Dance House when she received Asia Link Performing Arts Award. And before getting residency to India in 2006 at Darpana Academy of Performing Arts. 2012, she received Best Dance nomination for her solo work, that is Dance Interrogation at Adelaide Fringe. As a duet with Melinda Smith. Now, Melinda Smith is a dancer, they call it with disability. Wheelchair woman movement was started with that. In Tasmania, she got that award. In 2016, she completed her PhD in screen dance and performance improvisation. Many awards have been taken by Dr. Reid. Her documentary, Nothing But Bones in the Way, chronicling her ongoing dances practice with Melinda, was the Best Dance Film Festival Award at 15th Real Heart Link International Film Screenplay Festival in Canada. So we have the next luminary, Dr. Reid, Diana Reid from Adelaide, Australia. Dr. Diana, welcome, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that very warm welcome and the long introduction. It is terrific to be invited. Thanks so much. And it's great that the event could go ahead. I agree that even though this year has had many difficulties, I've in fact found a lot of really creative ways to connect with people internationally and across Australia and find ways to use these tools of screen tools to find other ways to work together and keep communicating. So I congratulate you on getting the technology together to have this happening. There's a lot of things I could talk about. I want to acknowledge that I did my first performance with Melinda, who you can see in the image behind me. That's a still from one of our films we did together. We did our first performance together at Sambhav in 2011. We had met the year before. Melinda has cerebral palsy, which means that she uses a wheelchair. She has a lot of spasms, very tight muscular tone, and she has difficulty speaking and swallowing, so it affects her in a sort of a high tone way, but there is nothing wrong with her brain or her determination. She was working with a group of 3 other women in wheelchairs and a theatre director working on a play about women with disability who the issues that arise for them when they're thinking about parenthood. And I was brought in as the choreographer because I had done one project a couple of years before, making some short films with some people with disability, just solos, and they had a range of intellectual and physical disabilities. So they brought me in, and we just hit it off, Mel and I. And because it was about parenthood, the subject of this play, I suggested, because I come from a contemporary dance background and we use the floor a lot. We move in and out of the floor, rolling, improvising, not so upright. And I suggested that, maybe she could get out of her wheelchair and try moving on the floor. And she had never danced out of her wheelchair before. She had moved in her wheelchair. So this was a really big move for her. And since then we've developed a dance practice and which has led over 10 years working together. And it's really a collaboration because I have learned more about myself and developed my vocabulary and my virtuosity in a different plane, in a different temporal and spatial plane. So our relationship is not about me helping her to become normal. Absolutely the opposite to that. It has been about us finding how we connect, which is how you would with any collaborator in my contemporary realm. We look at meeting bodies, meeting time frames. So, it has meant that a long relationship has enabled us to really sense and trust each other and to be able to come up with some really great things together. I work in screen dance practice and I also perform live, but I think it's screen dance practice that has really honed. I might just read a little bit. It grew out of a choreographic practice that was cultivated by a profound interest in the personal, in the uniqueness of the individual. So this interest reflects my ethical position of community and collaboration, but also of autonomy and difference. Screen Dance offered me the tools to satisfy my curiosity about the body, about our different bodies, and a way to liberate those bodies from the confines of the stage or gravity or linear time or gender. So when you're working in a film space, all of those restrictions disappear. You can use that form to find other realms. It's also empowered me to create my own representations of myself and to diffuse gender misalignments about the disciplines of media and dance. I think the screen dance and improvisation, and I must say that improvisation is a tool that contemporary dancers use a lot to develop their choreographic material. But in the last 15 years, I've also developed it as a performance form. So I feel I can trust and respond. I work site specifically, so I'd respond to a space and to the audience watching in a way that really excites me and provides some exciting new material that you might not otherwise find. So I think both screen dance and improvisation are vehicles for inclusivity in dance, because they attend to the individual, to spontaneity and to diversity. Working with a particular range and experience of each individual, improvisation is a revision of just what kind of movements can constitute a dance. Instead of a high leg brush, a movement of a finger becomes the same, has the same dynamic and the same power, especially if you're attending to it at close range through the camera. So since 2011, Mel and I have been sharing this dance practice. She describes herself as a dancer living with cerebral palsy, and this is a condition of unique diversity. You know, it affects each individual differently and to varying degrees. In Melinda's case, it means she cannot speak, eat, or walk unassisted. However, she's getting close to being able to walk unassisted after 10 years of dancing, let me tell you. What that means is she's working with a different temporal, spatial, and dynamic structure. And it also means that the majority of her day-to-day interactions with others are about explaining the difference and or asking for assistance. When we began practicing together, we spent a lot of time outside the studio, chatting online, reflecting on our experiences, sharing information about our histories, our bodies, our aesthetic, imagination, musicality, getting to know each other. And over the past 3 years, we practiced at least once weekly, and we would do 3-hour sessions. So you really drop in and spend a long time to discover how you could move one person from standing to the floor, for example. We move through imaginative and tactile scores, so there are no steps, and I am not teaching her or imposing a structure on it, how we work. We work with objects. We work a lot with her tools of disability, her wheelchair. She's got several wheelchairs, her speech device. All of these things have become incorporated in our performance practice. We even put a head on one wheelchair and projected her face onto it. We use audio in mobile speakers to animate these objects. We also brought my cameras in, and they became a way of not only seeing what we were doing in the studio, but it became sort of a tool that guided us in and around each other. It becomes a way, when you're moving a camera in action, it becomes a dance with the object or the people that you're filming, negotiating their negative space, keeping yourself safe at the same time. So it has a big peripheral realm. Yes, so we're now living in different cities. She's in Melbourne, but we collaborate. We do dance practice via Zoom now. I edited the documentary we filmed a couple of years ago, and I edited the year after. And I've just completed another film about my own dance history, a biopic called Yesterday's Skeleton. It's premiering in a couple of weeks' time, which has a section called The Other Body, which talks about Weave Movement Theatre, who I've worked with, which is a company in Melbourne with diverse minds and bodies, and then about my long-standing relationship with Mel. Mel has also now gotten interested in filmmaking, so we do a bit of teaching of editing skills across Zoom as well. I pause for breath. I had a section of that biopic. I'm not sure if it's queued to be seen. It was a 9-minute section.
Yeah, please tell me. So we heard from Dr. Reed in Australia, where it is 4:25 p.m. now. We heard Marina from Russia, Moscow, where it is 8:54 a.m. in the morning at present.
Ooh.
And we are in India, 11:25 a.m. And we are in different parts of the world connected together at Sambhav 2020. And the whole world is listening to us. Thank you very much, Dr. Reed. So nice to listen from a multi-talented human. Thank you very much for the cause of Divyangjan, the differently able, specially gifted children. We are all working together. And now we have got other luminaries from different parts of the world who have recorded their audio videos for us, for Sambhav, for Alpana. And we are going to now listen and moving on to United States of America, California. a leading national civil rights law and policy center established in 1979, directed by individuals with disabilities and parents who had children with disabilities. This is called Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund. In short, we call them as DRDF, an organization, a wonderful organization, working with core principles of equality of opportunity, disability accommodation, accessibility, and inclusion by empowering by strategies including training and education, legal advocacy, and public policy and legislative development. There are two luminaries from the fund we have. We call it short as DREDF. Ms. Susan Henderson, a BA in anthropology and MBA, working with DRDF fund since 1997, almost 23 years. She started Foster Youth Resources Education, in short we call them as FIRE project, to heighten awareness and protect the rights of people with children with disabilities in the child welfare system, and Media Alliance project to address misinformed disability coverage that underline public policy and legal advances. She has worked internationally and other disability-led organizations and conducts various workshops in Bahrain, Colombia, Japan, Jordan, Kenya, Kuwait, Tanzania, Uganda, etc. Along with her, we have Mr. Malhar Shah. He is a child of Indian origin, immigrants from Mumbai, India, studied gender and sexuality studies at the University of California, Riverside, to better understand how structural racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, etc., marginalizes the women and LGBT of color and disability. He took his passion for education, law, and policy to Harvard Law School, did a lot of work together, and now he is excited to return to education, law, and policy, special education at DREDF. So we have Madam Susan and Mr. Malar Shah from California. We may play the audio video from California.
Hello, I'm Susan Henderson, the Executive Director at Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund here in Berkeley, California. And it's nice to be with you all. I wish I could be there in person. I wish you could be here in person. And maybe next year or sometime down the road, we'll be able to do that together. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my organization, which we refer to as DREDF, and some of the laws that we work with to pursue disability rights here in the United States. And then my colleague, Malhar Shah, is going to go into more depth about his work with students with disabilities under one of those laws, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So I'm going to start off with a very brief PowerPoint. So I'm going to share my screen now. I'm sure you're all getting used to sharing screens on Zoom just like we are. And I hope this presentation is helpful, informative, and I'll see you on the other side. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about DREDF and the history of disability rights. My organization, Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, was founded in 1979. So we just recently celebrated our 41st anniversary. And we were founded as the disability rights, as the civil rights arm to the independent living movement, which had started in the United States in the 1970s. People with disabilities in the United States, just like everywhere else in the world, are a large minority. We have faced discrimination, just like every place else in the world, and we continue to face discrimination. Only about 20% of people with disabilities attend and graduate from a four-year college. We are largely unemployed. Our unemployment rate is usually at least twice that of the non-disabled population. And our work here at DREDF is to do what Martin Luther King Jr. did when he was here, is to get rid of injustice everywhere, not just for people with disabilities, but for all disenfranchised communities. So DREDF, our vision is a just world where all people live full and independent lives free of discrimination. Like I said, we were founded in 1979 and by both adults with disabilities and parents of children with disabilities, which was fairly unique at the time. We are a national law and policy center dedicated to protecting and advancing disability civil rights and human rights. We do work internationally, and some of us have gone to India to do civil rights work. I haven't, and I would love to someday. One of the other things we do is educate legislators, both at the national level, so at the US Congress, and at the state level here in California, to help policymakers understand disability and what affects the rights of people with disabilities. So the disability rights movement. People with disabilities are primarily responsible for forging the rights that we have here in the United States. It's not like members of Congress came to the disabled community and said, we see that you are facing discrimination. How can we help? It was exactly the opposite. People with disabilities came to recognize that their barriers to education, to employment, transportation, to recreation, to all of the things that non-disabled enjoy as a matter of course in their daily lives weren't about the disability within us. It was the barriers that society had put up. And so they started to come together and form a movement to create laws. Here in the United States, there's civil rights laws to protect and defend and promote the rights of people with disabilities. So here in the United States, there are 4 major laws that protect people with disabilities. These are national federal laws. There are more, but these are the 4 that we work with typically on a day-to-day basis. There's Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which is what Mulher is going to talk to you more about. The big civil rights law, which you may have heard of, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And there are fair housing rights laws that protect people with disabilities in housing. And I'll just touch on each one of these. So first, like I said before, in the 1970s, people with disabilities came to understand that barriers were blocking access to transportation, to communication for people who are deaf and people who are blind, to schools and colleges, because they weren't physically accessible, but also the materials that children and college students needed to access curriculum weren't accessible. There weren't talking books, and there wasn't braille or large print materials of textbooks. Office buildings and other workplaces were largely inaccessible to people, especially people with mobility impairments who use wheelchairs or walkers or scooters or other mobility aids. And the same thing for just stores and theaters and more. I'm sure you have all faced the same thing in India. So in the 1970s in the United States, we saw the first disability rights laws and the first independent living centers, which, by the way, was here in Berkeley, California. The first schools opening up to children with disabilities, and the first cross-disability networks. And I can't stress that enough. The importance of working
I will ask.
together for people who are
Don't
deaf, people
worry,
with
relax.
mobility impairments, people with intellectual or developmental disability impairments. There's a need for us to work together to promote our lives because our voices are stronger together. So one of the first federal laws was Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. And what that does, it protects people with disabilities from discrimination in programs that receive federal funds. So And that's huge because all the states, all 50 of the states and our territories like Puerto Rico and Guam, and local agencies are the cities and counties, public schools and public universities, transportation agencies, they all receive federal funds. So just simply, if you receive federal dollars, you cannot discriminate against people with disabilities. The second major law that passed in the 1970s, specifically in 1975, was the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And what the IDEA does, we refer to it as IDEA, is guarantee the right to an education for all children, but particularly children with disabilities. So it gave children with disabilities the right to what we refer to as a free appropriate public education, which we call FAPE. It requires that an individual education plan, also known as an IEP, be written to meet the educational needs of a child with a disability. IDEA has been successful. I mean, it still has we still have a lot of work to do to help individual children. There are a lot of systemic issues that still arise, but it's successful because the US Congress provides funding to all the states to help cover the cost of specialized education for children. It gives parents power to enforce the law, so there's private right of action, but also they are an equal member of the educational team when their child is found eligible for IDEA. Congress also provides funding to what we refer to as Parent Training and Information Centers, or PTIs. And PTIs help parents understand their rights and advocate for their children. In fact, my organization, DREDF, is a parent training information center. And the way we do that work is we have 4 women who are all parents of kids with disabilities who talk with other parents on the phone every day to talk about what the law says and how they can use the law to make sure their children get what they need at school. So, and you'll hear more about this from Mulhar in a few minutes. In 1990, we passed the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. And what the ADA did is it took Section 504 further. So remember, 504 said that if you received federal funding, you could not discriminate on the basis of disabilities. Well, the Americans with Disabilities Act, it didn't matter whether you got federal funding or not. It just said that you cannot discriminate. Businesses and all entities cannot discriminate on the basis of disability. The other law is the US Fair Housing Act. It protects people with disabilities against discrimination in housing, including when you want to rent or buy. It requires landlords to make reasonable exceptions in their policies so that people with disabilities have equal access to housing opportunities. So I just want to close by saying we have embraced, just like you have, the slogan, "Nothing about us without us," meaning that we are always at the table when there are discussions about disability or even most things, because as you know, everything touches disabilities. And now I want to stop here, stop my share, and introduce you to Mulhar Shah. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mulhar Shah. I am a disability rights attorney at the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, also known as DREDF, which you probably already know. I am specifically a special education attorney. And what that means is that I represent students with disabilities in kindergarten through 12th grade who are being denied their proper supports and services, which I'll explain in a little bit, under some really important disability rights protections that we have here in the United States. And to be a little more specific, I am an impact litigator. I'm not really sure if that term carries over in India, but in the United States, what that essentially means is that I bring lawsuits on behalf of large swaths of students to correct systematic deficiencies in different school districts in different states in the United States to ensure that these large group of students are provided the supports and services that they need. Now, a lot of my students are from low income backgrounds. A lot of them are students of color, primarily Black and Latinx students in the United States who have been systematically disenfranchised here. And so because of that, as a direct consequence of that, are in school districts that are under-resourced, in school districts that engage in more systemic classism and racism and explicit racism and classism against their students, especially the students with disabilities. So I want to talk a little bit more about my work, and before I do, however, I want to kind of give you a framework of the kind of laws that we're operating under in the United States. So there are two key laws that I use as advocacy tools here. One is what is called the IDEA. That stands for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. It is a landmark civil rights, disability rights law statute that was passed decades ago in the United States. And what it essentially does is it sets up a system for providing special education supports and services to students with disabilities whose disabilities prevent them from fully accessing an education. If I can give you an example, that would be the best thing. So, for example, I have a number of students who I represent who are on the autism spectrum. And these students usually require, depending on how their autism manifests, require specialized supports and services in schools. That can range from specialized academic instruction, which can look anything like a teacher modifying the general education curriculum to make it more accessible to that student, to help that student with difficulties they have grasping certain aspects of the curriculum. So, for example, if a student has difficulty with certain word sounds, the teacher will walk that student through learning those word sounds to mastering those word sounds, and they require that teacher to provide education that is specifically tailored to that student's needs, as opposed to education that perhaps students without disabilities would be able to grasp with a more generalized instruction to a large group of students. Now, the way that the American system is set up under the IDEA is that schools are required to locate. They have an obligation to locate students with disabilities that reside in the locality, in the community, in the local school district. This is an obligation called child find. It's incredibly important. What we often see are school districts that do not engage in child find sufficiently enough, or sometimes even at all. And it's a really big problem because that leaves large groups of students with disabilities who are not getting the supports and services that they need in order to access their education, and they get left behind. So child find, again, is the process by which school districts identify students who they suspect as having disabilities. That is the language in the statute. That is the obligation. If the school district suspects that they have a disability, they have an obligation then to provide assessments, evaluations, to identify what their specific disabilities are. Under the IDEA, there are around 13 eligibility categories. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but they range from something like other health impairment, which brings into it ADHD. There's autism. There are really quite a few that cover a range of disabilities, including learning disabilities, for example. Now, once the school district has gained approval from the parent to assess the student, they will conduct assessments. Usually a trained psychologist will conduct the assessment. And then the next thing that happens is what is called an IEP meeting. This stands for an Individualized Education Plan meeting, an IEP meeting. It's an incredibly important part of the IDEA and the right of students with disabilities in the United States. it really does serve as a foundation for the education of students with disabilities. The IEP meeting is a process in which the student's parent or guardian, school administrators, other interested parties come together, sit around a table, and meet about what the student's disability is, what those disability related needs are, and what services and supports the school needs to provide to that student. There's a host of case law in the United States about a school district's failure to hold IEP meetings, the school district's failure to sufficiently involve parents in the decision-making process, because ultimately in the United States, the school district cannot provide special education services and supports. They cannot even hold an IEP meeting most of the time without the parents' consent. So it's an incredibly important process where the parent gets so much input into the process. And then from there, school districts will take the plan and then provide the special education supports to the student. And this is the foundation really for providing services and for providing access to education in the United States. Now, I also really quick want to talk about Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, usually just called Section 504. It's a related statute. It has similar obligations. There's the child find obligation. There's the obligation to evaluate. Now, however, it's less educational in nature. It provides protections in schools, but it's less educational in nature. What I mean by that, I'll give you an example to compare. Let's take a student with something like dyslexia, like a learning disability, a reading disability, and then let's take someone with, take someone who uses a wheelchair. Now, the person with a wheelchair also needs accommodations to access the school, but it's less educational in nature. It's more about physical access to the school, getting into the building. They need ramps, they need elevators to access classrooms. So Section 504 provides that basis of protections for individuals with disabilities. When it gets to something that's more educational in nature, that's when we start getting into the IDEA and saying, okay, let's create an IEP for the student so they can access the specific curriculum, so they can access different aspects of the education in the school. So those are two really key important statutes that protect students with disabilities in the United States, and that I use primarily every day when I'm advocating for students with disabilities. What that will look like for me is I will attend IEP meetings to ensure that school districts are actually providing the services and supports that they need. I will file lawsuits arguing that school districts have not identified and evaluated students with disabilities under their child find obligations. They have not provided the required services and supports to those students. They are not providing a high enough level of education to students. These are various things that we will litigate. I can give you one really good example, and that's a case that we brought against the Berkeley Unified School District here in California, where we found out that the school district was not identifying students who have dyslexia, and then providing them the proper supports and services, the specialized academic instruction to help them gain literacy skills that they need in light of their dyslexia. So that's just one example, and that was my very quick recap of or summary of what the IDEA and Section 504 are in the United States. And I hope that was informative, and best of luck, and it was great talking to all of you. Bye-bye.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Susan and Malarsha from California, United States of America. So we started from Russia, moved on to Australia, then on to United States of America, and now we come to the different part of the world, that is Vietnam. A theater was established 42 years ago in the year 1978 under the aegis of Ministry of Culture and Information, Vietnam, known as Vietnam Youth Theater. Constantly explored creativity in every step with development of society, many benefits to society, worthy soldiers on the cultural and artistic front of the party and the socialist state of Vietnam. Many programs were held, many national, international accolades in Vietnam and all over the world has contributed not only to professional but also social works. The delegates of the theatre often deduct revenue to support aged orange children and children with disabilities. In the last 40 years they have been contributing. We have today with us very eminent personality from the Vietnam Youth Theatre, Mr. Nguyen C. Tian, the Deputy Director, is a meritorious artist, has had 2 silver medals, an actor, director, worked in various drama and films. His great films credit are Many Do Not Remember, Life Game, The Bride's Name is Lee, Hearts of Heaven. Various dramas like They Will Enter the Colon, Dalhousie, Hip Hop, Facts and the Bunch of Grapes, and 15 children comedy shows, etc. Along with Mr. Tien, we have Pham Duan Hoan from the Zaden Secondary School at Vietnam. Now, this school helps children who are hearing impaired. It is the first and the most prestigious education institution for hard of hearing pupils, deaf children in Vietnam. Every year, about 20 to 30 pupils graduate from the school and successfully integrate with the community. Recently, I was able to virtually see that the students sang national anthem in sign language on special flag raising ceremony at the opening ceremony of 2020-21 school function at Zanden High School. And then nearby country, Thailand, from Bangkok, we have Quat, who will be speaking to us in this international seminar. So now we will have a recorded audios from Mr. Nguyen C. Tian from Vietnam Theatre, Mr. Pham Duan Hoan from Xandas, Vietnam, and Mr. Quat from Bangkok, Thailand. So may we kindly play from Vietnam.
Nghệ thuật, ước mơ của trẻ khuyết tật được kỳ vọng thành hiện thực. Giống như các quốc gia trên thế giới, Việt Nam có tỷ lệ người khuyết tật cao, chiếm 7% dân số. Một nửa số người khuyết tật là thanh niên và trẻ em, chiếm khoảng 6,2 triệu người. Nguyên nhân của tình trạng này bao gồm thiên tai, tai nạn giao thông và đặc biệt là chiến tranh. Chỉ tính riêng số người Việt Nam bị ảnh hưởng bởi dioxin trong chiến tranh Việt Nam đã lên đến hàng triệu người. Chính phủ Việt Nam đã rất coi trọng việc ban hành một số chính sách, văn bản, pháp luật nhằm ưu đãi và trợ giúp người khuyết tật. Điều kiện sống của người khuyết tật đã được cải thiện đáng kể, trong khi xã hội đã tạo cho họ sự bình đẳng hơn và tiếp cận tốt hơn với các hoạt động kinh tế xã hội của đất nước. Bên cạnh đó, sự quan tâm, giúp đỡ của chính quyền và cộng đồng đối với đời sống tinh thần của người khuyết tật giúp họ vượt qua mặc cảm, tích cực tham gia các hoạt động văn hóa, văn nghệ, thể dục thể thao. Đặc biệt, các hoạt động nghệ thuật có thể giúp thanh thiếu niên và trẻ em tin tưởng vào khả năng của mình và phấn đấu cho những khát vọng tốt đẹp của cuộc đời mình. Trong những năm gần đây, nhiều tổ chức xã hội và các phương tiện thông tin đại chúng đã tổ chức các sự kiện nghệ thuật lớn như biểu diễn nghệ thuật, triển lãm tranh, ảnh cho trẻ em khuyết tật và có hoàn cảnh khó khăn nhằm gây quỹ cải thiện điều kiện sống và hòa nhập xã hội. Một số lượng lớn các quỹ cộng đồng, trung tâm xã hội, làng SOS và trường học đặc biệt dành cho người mù, điếc, khuyết tật tâm thần và trẻ em đường phố đã được hình thành ở tất cả các tỉnh thành trên toàn quốc và được tài trợ bởi chính phủ, các doanh nghiệp và những nhà hảo tâm trong và ngoài nước để hỗ trợ cho trẻ em khuyết tật. Những cuộc giao lưu giữa các nghệ sĩ, nhạc sĩ, diễn viên nổi tiếng từ nhiều nhà hát với làng trẻ em SOS và trẻ em bị ảnh hưởng bởi chất độc dioxin ở Việt Nam là bằng chứng xác thực về sự quan tâm của xã hội đối với trẻ em khuyết tật cũng như khát vọng của các em về một cuộc sống bình yên và hạnh phúc. Trong nhiều lĩnh vực hoạt động xã hội mà trẻ khuyết tật tham gia để hòa nhập với cộng đồng, nghệ thuật là một trong những nhịp cầu nối trẻ khuyết tật với các thành viên khác của xã hội. Khi khả năng của trẻ khuyết tật được khuyến khích, thể hiện trong các hoạt động cộng đồng như vẽ tranh, nhiếp ảnh, ca hát, khiêu vũ, biểu diễn kịch câm, v.v., các em sẽ cảm thấy rằng mơ ước của mình đang được thực hiện. Như vậy, có thể nói nghệ thuật là cầu nối hữu hiệu giúp trẻ khuyết tật có được kinh nghiệm sống và sự tự tin trong tương lai để tiến bước trong cuộc sống. Kính thưa quý vị, Nhà hát Tuổi Trẻ Việt Nam là một nhà hát quốc gia, thành viên của Trung tâm Architect Việt Nam, có chức năng dàn dựng các chương trình nghệ thuật dành cho khán giả trẻ và thiếu nhi, hướng tới những giá trị chân, thiện, mỹ. Kể từ khi Nhà hát Tuổi Trẻ Việt Nam được thành lập cách đây hơn 42 năm, trong số 400 suất diễn mỗi năm cho khán giả trẻ và thiếu nhi, nhiều nghệ sĩ của nhà hát chúng tôi đã tham gia đào tạo một số lượng các khóa học kịch câm, múa, hát và diễn xuất. Hàng chục suất diễn miễn phí đã được tổ chức cho trẻ em khuyết tật tại các trường như trường khiếm thị, trường câm và điếc, trung tâm trẻ em đường phố, trẻ em có hoàn cảnh khó khăn ở miền núi và vùng sâu, vùng xa. Các nghệ sĩ của Nhà hát Tuổi Trẻ Việt Nam đã giúp đào tạo trẻ khuyết tật có năng khiếu nghệ thuật đặc biệt và giúp các em vượt qua mặc cảm. Một số người trong số họ đã trở thành sinh viên của các trường như Học viện Âm nhạc Quốc gia Việt Nam, các trường đào tạo nghệ thuật chuyên nghiệp. Một số đã trở thành những nghệ sĩ chuyên nghiệp. Nghệ thuật quả thực đã hiện thực hóa ước mơ của họ. Từ tận đáy lòng mình và thay mặt cho các nghệ sĩ của Nhà hát Tuổi Trẻ Việt Nam, tôi xin cảm ơn ban tổ chức Sambhav đã cho tôi được chia sẻ và có được những kinh nghiệm quý báu trong hoạt động nghệ thuật dành cho trẻ em khuyết tật. Xin gửi lời chúc tốt đẹp nhất đến Sambhav 2020 thành công tốt đẹp. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Kính thưa các quý vị, tôi là Phạm Văn Hoan, hiệu trưởng trường phổ thông cơ sở Sa Đàn, Hà Nội, Việt Nam. Thay mặt các thầy cô giáo và các em học sinh, tôi xin gửi tới các quý vị lời chúc sức khỏe và lời chào trân trọng. Chúc cho tất cả chúng ta phòng chống tốt, an toàn trước đại dịch Covid-19. Chúc sự kiện Sambhav năm 2020 thành công tốt đẹp. Kính thưa các quý vị, trường phổ thông cơ sở Sa Đàn trực thuộc Sở Giáo dục và Đào tạo Hà Nội là một ngôi trường đặc biệt, trường dạy học sinh bình thường và học sinh khiếm thính trên địa bàn thành phố Hà Nội từ lớp mẫu giáo 3 tuổi đến hết lớp 9 trung học cơ sở. Trường được thành lập năm 1977 và đã có 43 năm xây dựng, phát triển, trưởng thành. Trường đạt nhiều thành tích trong giảng dạy và chăm sóc học sinh khuyết tật, được ghi nhận bởi bằng khen của Chủ tịch thành phố Hà Nội, bằng khen của Bộ Giáo dục và Đào tạo, bằng khen của Trung ương Hội Chữ thập đỏ Việt Nam, bằng khen của Trung ương Hội Cứu trợ trẻ em tàn tật Việt Nam, bằng khen của Chính phủ và đặc biệt huân chương lao động hạng 3, huân chương lao động hạng nhì, huân chương lao động hạng nhất của nhà nước Việt Nam. Trường hiện có 460 học sinh, trong đó có 300 học sinh khiếm thính với 68 cán bộ, giáo viên, nhân viên. Ngoài dạy văn hóa, nhà trường rất chú trọng chăm lo cho các em học sinh về sức khỏe, nâng cao dinh dưỡng, hoạt động trải nghiệm, văn hóa thể thao và hướng nghiệp dạy nghề. Tham gia sự kiện Sambhav lần này, nhà trường gửi tới các quý vị tiết mục múa của các em học sinh khiếm thính với chủ đề Sống như những đóa hoa, thể hiện khát vọng sống, học tập và rèn luyện, mau chóng hòa nhập cộng đồng của các em học sinh khiếm thính nói riêng và học sinh khuyết tật nói chung. Chúc sự kiện Sambhav năm 2020 thành công tốt đẹp. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
we'll have now from Bangkok, Thailand.
Chairperson, distinguished delegate, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to present my view virtually at Sambhav 2020, International Platform for Sharing of Best Practice in Advancing the Rights of Persons with Disability, especially physically and mentally challenged persons. This session remarked a good opportunity for artists with disability to perform their potential in worldwide. The Ministry of Social Development and Human Security by Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disability in Thailand is a national focal point on disability issue. Hence, the National Committee on Empowerment of Persons with Disability is chaired by Prime Minister. The main responsibility to coordinate policy and plan on the empowerment of persons with disability at both domestic and international level, including mobilization the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disability and other related obligations. Ministry of Social Development and Human Security recognize the importance of the opportunity, respect, encouragement for persons burdened to be powerful in society and nation. Regarding this, Thailand strongly promotes the rights of persons with disability, such as mobilization on reasonable accommodation and accessibility to meet their needs. Disability allowance and empowerment of persons with disability in both government and private sector, sign language interpreters, and personal assistance for persons with disability. Thailand also enhanced capacity of persons with disability to be a singer, musician, and role model. The ministry worked with collaboration with other related agencies to enable persons with disability to live with others in society with dignity and equality. Ladies and gentlemen, Thailand takes the right-based approach to ensure that persons with disability will be able to live independently in the society. Thailand is implementing the 5th National Plan of Empowerment of Persons with Disability from 2017 to 2021 with a strategic program called Equal. Also, it has the 2nd strategic plan on empowerment of women with disability to promote their participation and strengthen social security for the group and to address multiple and intersection forms of discrimination against women with disability. In terms of the artists with disability, the Riot Thai government realized the priority of persons with visual disability and all disability, notably the artists of visual disability in public in line with the control of Baga Act 2016, which stipulates that persons who perform their capacity in public area are legal. Since 2015, the Ministry of Social Development and Human Security has been implementing the project on the capacity building for the singer and musician with visual disability in public, from street to stars, with the collaboration of the civil state among 3 famous music companies like GMM, RS, True Corporation, and Thailand Association of Blind. 50 out of over 1,000 artists with visual disability who have high potential in nationwide are selected to gradually promote, support, and enhance their capacity. Moreover, the project continuously supports persons with physically autism, and intellectual disability. Ladies and gentlemen, but last but not least, Thailand put tireless effort to protect the rights of persons with disability corresponding to the CRPD and the SDG, an Asian decade of persons with disability from 2011 to 2020. Thank you all. Have a nice day. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Stan, Mr. Pham Duan, and Ms. Kwat, for such a nice, detailed descriptions about what is being done in these parts of the world for differently able children. I just want to say, God Almighty, Mother Nature, whatever you call, whichever religious belief you have, gifts these children to the people who have kind heart. And those people with the kind heart ultimately take care of them and let them have the right place in the society. All are working towards that. For the last 15 years or so, India has been working a lot in this field, and Alpana is the leading front where platform is given in India and also other countries to showcase as well as inform us globally about what is being done for these specially abled children. Again, I would say, just want to add that my younger sister's son has been blessed with a differently abled child only last year. And I know how a family really feels that the place should be given to them in the society. We are all working toward that cause. Alpana is committed and working very hard for the last over 15 years. With that now, taking a global turn, coming back to India, we come a little closer to India and humbly request Mr. Jaharul Islam Mamun from Society for Welfare of Intellectually Disabled from Bangladesh to give us keynote address. Mr. Jaharul Islam Mamun from Bangladesh. Sir.
Honorable President of the program, Alpana Naik, distinguished guests, participants and friends in the program of Sambhav by Alpana Society through virtual online media, special greetings to all of you who are watching the program from various countries and their friends, relatives and fellow feelings. First of all, I expressing greetings to all of you in this Sambhav cultural program by Alpana Society through the online virtual media. It is my great pleasure and I feel delighted in participating Sambhav 2020 as the keynote speaker. My special gratitude and thanks to our beloved and dearest Nitya Guru Alpana Naik, President of Alpana Society, who consider me to be the keynote speaker of this session. In this event, the participants will expose their potential and possibilities with the better cultural performance to overcome constraint of the disabilities and social barriers to bring them into mainstream of the society, including the protection of equal rights and opportunities and establishment of their quality life and social dignity. The persons with disabilities, especially intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities and other related neurodevelopmental disabilities can be rehabilitated as self-reliant in the society and participate in the national development with the economic progress through special education and better practice on cultural development. In view of this perspective and prospective successes of the persons with neurodevelopmental disabilities through the cultural performance. The creation of public awareness towards neurodevelopmental disabilities, including advocacy to the government, will be strengthening success in changing of negative social attitude of the community people to the persons with disabilities toward positive direction is taken place through sports and cultural performance. We could not be able to attend the program, on-site program, due to the situation of COVID-19, but Alpana did not stop. It is a remarkable arrangement of Alpana Society through online virtual media where all kinds of disabled persons and their relatives along with fellow friends from different countries get opportunities to perform and watch their best cultural performance. I congratulate our beloved and dearest Nitya Guru Alpana Naik, President of Alpana Society, for working since 2003 on the mission of the society is promotion of performing arts is facilitating holistic human development. The society assesses the cause of spreading awareness among today's youth, but rich cultural heritage through various forms of art like music, dance, and other courses of painting. Alpana and Swede made partnership relationship in the best cooperation in 2009 and working as a not-for-profit voluntary agencies that undertakes projects for improving cultural performance, who is establishing better quality life of people with disabilities and create awareness for sustainability. The 29th International Day of Disability celebrated on 3rd of December 2020 by United Nations on the theme, quote, Building Back Better towards a disability inclusive, accessible and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. It has addressed a side event of 2020 International Day of Persons with Disabilities, IDPA, by member states of United Nations entities, private sectors, foundations and organizations during impact of the COVID-19 crisis on persons with disabilities and their vision for steering back toward disability inclusive implementation of 2030 agenda. The international program focused on the recent progress by the United Nations system, strengthening of the international policy framework on disability, inclusive development, development of the tools for mainstreaming disability in different areas. United Nations systems also included good practices by civil society and the private sectors. Foundation to build back better towards an inclusive, accessible and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. The World Bank also contributing to positive changes on the Fund for Equality and Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities. The government of Bangladesh distributed aids, food, clothes and financial assistance to the students with neurodevelopmental disabilities by the NDD Trust formed by the government through special school under Swede Bangladesh during COVID-19. Swede Bangladesh also continuing school education and cultural activities through online virtual media for persons with NDD as home-based programs in maintaining healthcare as per rules of the UN and World Health Organization in protection of coronavirus infected situation. Swede students to live safely at home and practice of cultural activities which inspired them to avoid mental disadvantage and live free with their parents. We have been prepared with our cultural team to participate the Sambhav 2020 through virtual participation on 18 to 20th December 2020. We had the opportunity to participate practically and physical presence and perform on-site program for years together during the past 10 years with Alpana and Sambhav. Although this time we are existing physically a far distance with each other, even then we are closely attached virtually. Hope that it will also be helpful to meet up the cause for the betterment and well-being of persons with disability. Our recommendations to meet the SDG by 2030 international national development programs, including cultural performance and inclusive development, on concrete action to make persons with disabilities in policy making and to build just and inclusive societies through implementation of SDGs, in avoiding lack of accessibility, virtual environment, negative attitude, and we are to train up our intellectually challenged persons for rehabilitation with better life living in this society. Thank you for patient sharing, watching this program of Alpana Society. Special thanks once again to Alpana Nayak and her colleagues and team members. Thank you and wish all the best. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir. In a country where vast majority of people live below poverty line, development rehabilitation of intellectually disabled children is a real big challenge. Under the aegis of Shri Islam Mamun sir, who delivered keynote address to us, SWID, that is Society for Welfare of Intellectually Disabled Children, is advancing gradually to develop so much for these children that they live a life of their own. SWID is an association of parents, relatives, professional and society workers engaged in providing services to these children. They have several branches in Bangladesh, but Dhanmondi branch is the leading one. Under the control and under the guidance of Sri Jawaharlal Aslam Mamun sir, we are moving very nicely in Bangladesh. Thank you very much for your keynote address, sir. And now from Bangladesh, we come to Nepal, where we have Sunagawa under the aegis of Madam Sarita Dongal. The development of intellectually disabled women looked after by her. She is a visual artist, a master's degree in fine art from Tribhuvan University, Nepal, and Community Children Art School. The oil paintings are marvelous, which have made a history done by her. She is a talented Nepali artist of the young generation. She has two children, Sudiksha and Saksham. She has had professional education at IFA Lalit Kala campus at Tribhuvan, BFA at the Lalit Kala campus at Tribhuvan University. She has been to Japan in 2002 and has had master's degree in fine arts. She had been lecturer in Himalaya College of Engineering, Maneshwar, Kathmandu, and Art and Craft Institute at Sunagawa, Women Mentally Disabled Center. She has received many accolades, many solo exhibitions in countries like Nepal, Japan, France, Australia. She is the founder of Community Children Art School. She has an art collection in many countries, including Norway, Japan, Canada, Australia, Korea, France, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany, etc. So we have with us the esteemed personality, Madam Sarita Dongal from Nepal.
Namaste. Good afternoon to all participants, organizers and distinguished guests. Namaste, I am Sarita Dongal from Nepal. I'm very pleased to be speaking in front of you all today on behalf of Sungava. I really hope you are all as excited as I am to be part of this great moment. I'd like to draw your attention to a few moments as I'm willing to share my experience about the joy I found while working with people having disabilities. First and foremost, I would like to thank Alpana for giving us this opportunity to represent Nepal in this 3 days seminar. In that seminar, we are presenting a dance performance by our Down syndrome students. As an artist teacher, I have been working with Sungaba homes since 2010. During these 10 years, I have been the feeling of students through art, and I have been able to understand what they feel through art. That makes me very happy and help me to keep moving. I have realized how expressive they become when it comes to art, and therefore the art classes for them has become a source of art therapy. This is the major reason we have been continuing the art session since the very beginning. Being an art teacher for all kinds of students, I find a huge differences in working with normal children and children with mental disabilities. The feelings while working with them cannot be expressed in any words. The happiness we receive from spending time with them is very different from what we have expressed. In our country, people are not much aware about these disabilities and their skills and abilities. So, we are working to expose their skills, talents, and works to the public. We want the public to realize that their abilities and skills can help them earn their living. After working with students with disabilities, I found change in myself as well. The level of patience within me has risen. During the teaching process, while working with one students, the other students tend to forget what we are doing. Going back to the previous students, the other one keeps forgetting the lessons and vice versa. From the very beginning, the process I have been in them is beyond happiness. In my first class, they could not even differentiate the colors, whereas today they are able to copy exactly the colors of the object presented. In our society, people underestimate the abilities and skills of children with mental disabilities. This is something we need to change, because with little help from everybody and the teachers, they have the ability to earn a living on their own. Organizations such as Alpana are helping to expose their talents and abilities for their life. This is very nice platform to children with disabilities, and it is also a big help to their parents. Presenting their skills to the public as necessary to change people's view towards the innocent children and disabilities. I believe not only in our country, but also in various other countries, we have been viewing the differences in the people's mind. Programs and seminars like this have helped changing the people's view towards a better and more positive view. Likewise, it has also influenced parents with similar children to involve their children in such organizations that provide training and seminars for the betterment of their lives. In present day, I have come across different new trainings and seminars to children like this, which has helped them in building their abilities and therefore as lead them to be able to self-stand to their own life and don't depend on anybody. Last but not least, I can never express the happiness I received while working with them to the last 10 years. The feelings and expressions while working with them can never be expressed through words. But I will for sure mention that once you start working with them, you will never stop. To conclude, I would like to heartily thank Alpana for this our wonderful platform which has been working to promote the abilities of the children with disabilities. Well, thank you for listening and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarita ma'am. Thank you very much. From Nepal, we cross ocean and move to their neighboring country, Sri Lanka. And then I'll bring you back to India, Sambhav Command Center at New Delhi. Inspired by Saint Mother Teresa in Kolkata, a voluntary social organization was established in Sri Lanka named Mother Charitable Foundation, a non-profit NGO in 2013 with the National Center at Moratowa, Sri Lanka. Organization MCF serves the needy without any discrimination with regard to their ethnicity, caste, religion, or clan. Dedicated to children or any other community who need clemency and humanity. The services of MCF spread from rural to national level, reaching the lives of many people in need, especially the children with special needs, elders, those suffering from cancer, AIDS, etc., and banished from society. The 5 major principles which MCF takes up is love, care, protection, feeding, and education. They work in the fields of education, health, food, maternity care, community development, relief, emergency relief, rehabilitation, livelihood assistance, and empowering projects. How they do, what they do, how beautifully it is done in Sri Lanka. We have with us the General Secretary of Mother Child Fund, MCF, Mr. Tushari Fernando. So may we have Mr. Tushari Fernando on screen, please.
Ayubowan, Vanakkam, greetings to all of you. I'm Tushari Fernando, representing Mother Charitable Foundation from Sri Lanka. It's really glad to meet you all at Sambhav 2020, even in virtually. And our heartiest congratulations for all of you for your 15th celebration, your 15th anniversary at Sambhav. When you celebrate your Sambhav for the 15th time, this is our 8th experience at Sambhav 2020. So it's really a great moment to celebrate. Now, 2020 is a year that made everything change. We have to be used to a new normal condition. But I think COVID-19 took many things from us, but it also gave many things. It also gave new things for us. People understood that their needs are not expensive, but the way they live are expensive. So people started to serve others, serve through love. That's our mission. So Mother Charitable Foundation found many support from all the people across the country, in our country in Sri Lanka. So we were able to provide, we had a massive series of emergency relief services throughout the country. We were able to give meal packets, dry ration packets for the people living with diseases and people, especially people with disabilities. So it became a blessing for some people and became some barriers for us, but we were able to manage. So not only that, the schools were closed during those days. Even now the schools are closed in Sri Lanka. But we were able to provide student activity learning packages by post to people, for the children living with disabilities. They were able to, even they are at home, they received many activities to be done at home with the help of their parents, and it became a time that they can improve their relationships with their parents, with their family. So 2020, I hope that 2021 will be much more change under new normal condition, but we will never stop our mission to serve through love. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From the core of my heart, I express sincere gratitude to Ms. Marina, Dr. Diana Reid, Ms. Susan, Mr. Malar Shah, Nguyen Saint Tian from Vietnam, Mr. Quat and Pham from Vietnam, Sir Johalul Islam Mamun from Bangladesh, Madam Sarita Dongal, and Madam Tushari from Sri Lanka. Thank you very much. And also, it will be incomplete if I don't thank Alpana from Delhi, India, Guru Alpana Naik, who has made this program Sambhav 2020 a platform to bring all the world at one place. Thank you very much. All the best. God bless you all.
Thank you, Dr. Dhamija, for chairing this session. It was a very interesting and very thought-provoking session. And we had international speakers. As you know, on this platform, besides seminars and workshops, we also have performing arts by artists from different countries, all with special abilities, I must say, not disabilities.
Yeah.
So now with that, we wind up our seminar session. We'll be having our art and craft workshop at 1:30 p.m. and it will be conducted by Mr. Jasur Jumayev from Uzbekistan, and also Mrs. Alka Agarwal of Alpana will be conducting and teaching some art and craft to our students. So before we started this seminar, we had a very interesting film on Deanne Reid, Dr. Deanne Reid from Australia.
Yeah.
She spoke also here.
Absolutely.
And how she closely works with people with disabilities. So we would also like to thank Deanne for sending us that film and apprising our viewers on her work. So with that, we'd like to thank once again all the participants, all the eminent speakers from different parts of the world who contributed in this seminar. Thank you, Dr. Dhamija.
Thank you.
See you at 1:30 p.m. with the art and craft workshop.
Thank you.